Good morning, and welcome to another episode of Speaking Out, Exposing Corruption and Incompetence. Today, Wednesday, August 10th, 2022. Welcome all. A pleasant good morning to one and all. And you know the drill, you know the drill. Share the live. The numbers are already mounting rapidly. Share the live, let people know that we're on. We have this date that we're not going to miss. We're on, and we are ready and rearing to go. My co-host, my co-accused, my companion is already in the studio and he's waiting and ready to go. I want to welcome, first in line today was Vibart again. Vibart again was here on time. And even before, he fell in as he was taught to do before the appointed time. So Vibart, yes, you got the prize today. I noted, however, that some of those people who are a little late on the previous occasions, they're here on time. For example, Lado is here already. Denise is here. Elise, Natasha, they're already here. Let me see who else I can find here. Joan is here. Welcome, Abiola. Ulrich, my partner. Ulrich is already here, man. Ulrich, you don't miss it. Welcome, Ulrich. William, someone is here. Barbara is here. As I said before, Elise, she ain't making chance. You think it's sport when people check your days pay? Denise and Lenny, I ain't see Lenny yet, but when your days pay chatting, you make sure that you're here on time. Randy is here. Troy, Essa, Sheila, Squaddy 351. Squaddy here from Delaware, all the way from Delaware. Granville from Northeast. Welcome. Andrew, welcome. And Doreen, my next squaddy, 351 is here, 349 is here as well, squaddy. Renata all the way from London. Welcome, Leonard. Don, Forbes, Franklin. Vibart from East Bank. Not a regular, Vibart from East Bank. Jackie, welcome, Jackie. Welcome. Sharon, welcome. John, Joan. Joy Amanda, welcome. Patricia, Scanty, welcome. Lado, as I've said, Savitri is here, and the numbers are here. The regulars, Wilson, Khadija, welcome all. Another very good day. Samuel, Emerson, Melissa. The class pulling up very early this morning. Today is going to be a great teaching day. So welcome one and all. Francis, Brent, I noted people from Canada, people from the United States, Benny, London, several places in the United States, they're all here. Well, somebody said what? To tell those the fake. Somebody said, good morning, Mr. Slow. Tell those police they have to turn in those fake unconstitutional strikes back to the quartermaster stores. Somebody is saying that. I am not going to say it. Now the squaddy is here. Frankie 9551, mom. The squaddy is here with me every day. Every Wednesday is here. Welcome, Frankie. Arta, welcome. Annette, welcome, Annette. Former Minister Annette is here. Welcome. Countryman George is in the house. Emily, Mavis, many persons are here. Sagi, welcome, Sagi. 9602 Sagi. Y'all want to know, remember these numbers, yeah? 9602 Sagi is here with us this morning. Godfrey, young chick. Only the TSU people will know that. Godfrey is Chick Webster's son. And Godfrey is here with us this morning. He's telling us to keep up the good work. Admire, not the cricketer, but this is an old police. They're all here. They're all Carol, old finance office girl. Carol is here. So welcome one and all. Welcome. As we said, today is a good day. It's a day that the Lord has made, and we should rejoice and be glad in it. We have to give praise to the Lord to be here in the land of the living. Many persons have not been able to make it. And having said that, perhaps I should start with the sad news to inform you of the passing of several former members and one current serving member. The first announcement I want to make, it is deep regret that I have to announce to you of the passing of retired Inspector Dan Bollers. Some of you, the older folks like Sagi and Lado, they might remember Dan Bollers. 6670 was his number, Pablo A. Woods, Scotty. Dan, I met Dan as a young constable at TSU because Dan had that, what we call the TSU Vice. Every month he presented himself at the TSU. And whenever Dan saw me around all the years, he would say to me, "What is the media?" And for those of you who don't know what he meant, when I was a junior officer course number 5, one of my colleagues had to do a presentation. He had to do a paper on the media. And they said that I tore it up. I tore up the paper by asking him what is the media. And he couldn't explain what is the media. Couldn't explain adequately what is the media. And therefore, Dan Ballas, every time Dan Ballas saw me, that is the way he greeted me. What is the media? So regrettably, I have to announce that Dan passed. And you know, for those of you who would remember too, Dan was very active in the Ex-Police Association. Very, very active in the Ex-Police Association. So Dan passed recently. And then we had the passing too of retired woman Inspector Veronica Wilson. She was 0846. She used to be at the CID headquarters, I think the fingerprint branch, for a number of years. She was there. They call her Vivi Veronica Wilson. Her husband went with me to Namibia for the United Nations there in the transition group. So Vivi passed recently, and a few days ago I learned that there was the death of a policewoman from the immigration branch, Onika Caesar. She passed recently, and only this morning, as I was preparing to come and to talk to you this morning, I got the sad news that retired woman assistant superintendent Enid Moore passed away last night or this morning. And Enid was a famous policewoman. She was at the Mounted Branch. Those of you would remember, I think her number was W141. She spent a lot of years. She was well known as one of the perhaps first females to be stationed at the police Mounted Branch. So Enid passed away this morning. I think she passed in the US. So I want to take this opportunity to express condolences to the bereaved relatives, friends, colleagues of all those who have passed. And I know some of you will tell me we got to stop it. Yeah, we got to stop it. For this morning, I think this is the most we have had to announce on any morning. Well, you know, the good Lord is at work, and the good Lord knows best. The good Lord knows best. So when the time comes for all of us to go, we have to go. So despite all of those who are there, backbiting, being self-serving, and being unfair to others, the time will come when we will all have to go. When the big man said time to come, we have to go. You cannot do, you know, the story is told very jocularly of the man who was told that it was his time. He didn't want to go. So what he did, he put on a short pants and he went into the yard to play marble with the little boys. So when Death turned up and Death asked for him, they said that he wasn't there, he gone out. So Death looked in the yard and said, well, if he's not here, I'm going to take the biggest boy in the yard with the short pants. So when the time comes to go, you have to go. So let's understand this. And that is why we should live for each other. We should make sure, because we don't know when the day is coming. We don't know when that day will come. What we do know is that that day will ultimately, inevitably come. So, again, condolences to those persons who have passed. And their souls rest in peace and rise in glory. And let me bring in at this stage my co-host, my colleague, CC.
Thank you very much. Morning to you, morning to listeners. Nice to be in the land of the living. My condolences to all those, to the relatives and friends of all those persons who passed away, the former member and serving member of the force. We have to go someday, but that's what and we gotta be thankful for that we are alive. But there are also some other good news, Paul, is that Deputy Commissioner Paul Williams has recently graduated with a doctorate from the in international relations from the Atlantic International University in Hawaii. I know him since he was a recruit. I remember when he came to the police as a member of the JSROC, Joint Service Recruitment Orientation Program, where they used to go on an orientation program before they go to the various services. And very early, I identify him as a person with tremendous potential for growth and development. He didn't surprise me. I can recall him undergoing a 1 year special pursuit course that we used to run. Now the watered-down course that they're running now with some university. After then, he went to the university, got a diploma in public management. He got his law degree. He got a postgraduate certificate in legislative drafting and a master's in criminal justice and executive leadership, among several other qualifications. For me, I wrote and I still maintain that Paul Williams should have been there as the commissioner of police. He is the only deputy commissioner of police. The rest are masquerading when they say they're acting DC admin, acting DC operations, acting DC special branch, acting DC law enforcement, as the case may be. I hope Paul will put up his certificate, his degrees, his doctorate, so that person could see. Not like what I've seen in a certain office where a guy has a whole set of certificates on the wall there, some 1 day, some 4 hours, some 1 week certificates, both of them. Paul has a doctorate in international relations. I wish to congratulate him, and I wish to make the point, with all the qualifications, he has never received a cent in terms of sponsorship from the government. Well done, Paul, and move on to greater heights.
Congratulations to Deputy Commissioner Paul Williams. And the sad thing about it, it would appear now that when you get those type of qualification, people don't look at it, and you're not given commensurate responsibilities and duties. But continue reaching for the sky. The sky is the limit. Qualify yourself, because so that when the time comes for you to move on, you are marketable. One of the problems with many of those who are around the place and masquerading, they know that they're not marketable unless they get political favors. They can do little else. That is the issue. So they have to jump to the tune of the politicians, because they know that they are not marketable and no one will pick them up. Long ago, we used to say somebody's going to give them an old jacket and put them to do watchman work. And perhaps that is the fate of some of those persons. And I looked at one of the comments, and somebody said that we don't know which day, referring to people who passed away. You don't know which is your day. And I remember old people say that man can do as much as he like, but not as long as he like. And I want them to remember this. You can do as much as you like. You can be as vindictive as you like. But someday, the big man is going to put an end to all of that. So congratulations again to Paul Williams. I know other senior and other officers who are pursuing tertiary education. And even when you compare the type of qualification to some of the people who are there masquerading as in those chairs, as the old people, people would say, they ain't ready. They ain't ready, but they have political backing, and they're using the political backing to destroy the system. And I say that, to destroy the system. Now, let me move on to say that I noticed, and CC, I want to hear your views on this, because I noticed over the past week, and again this morning, there is a recruitment drive, police recruitment drive in Region 6. I noted one of the PR people posting that, and he says, and it's the dishonesty in the thing, some deputy commissioner is going to be there. And we know the only deputy commissioner they have is Paul Williams. And I know it's not Paul Williams who's going to be there to do the recruiting. Have you seen that notification? What are your views on it, CC?
I saw it, and it's shocking. I can remember at the integrity conference, as they call it, they said that, look, they're going to recruit persons of a higher quality, and that you must have at least 3 CXCs to become a member of the Guyana Police Force. perhaps the paradigm has shifted again because they didn't mention anything about qualification and they don't interview. So perhaps they have done away with the examination, that maybe no longer persons are required to do any examination, just an interview, and then they might make you a member of the Ghana police force. But Paul, the Ghana police force is about behavior. And I wrote several articles about behavior. And I'm talking about behavior from top right down. I remember the Chief Justice talking about person who is self-serving and a very senior person as that. That the behavior is the major phenomenon that a policeman has got to understand. Not only the behavior of the criminals, the behavior of the family, friends, members of the public, but his own behavior. And he's got to understand behavior. And if you don't understand behavior or you don't behave in a certain way, it's going to cast a bad light as it's casting on the police force right now. But in their recruitment strategy, they have to look at behavior. And my point is that they should create scenarios, create opportunities where you're able to observe behavior of the applicants. Put them in situations, maybe in problem-solving situations. Put them in certain situations where you have trained assessors to assess them, to look at psychological behavior. I mentioned something ago in an article that the police should set up what we call a behavioral science unit. Paul, both of us benefited from the behavioral science unit in the FBI when we were there, where you have trained persons who will look at behavior and understand behavior at all levels in the police force. And the easy way to start from is from the recruitment level, where you look at behavior, because a lot of psychopaths could come in the police force, a lot of high school bullies could come in the police force, and apparently they're looking at quantity and not quality. So I'm saying in the recruitment process, look at behavior, look at psychological behavior. What they did, they employ a person who they say is a psychologist, but he just got a little first degree, and that person's there dealing basically with recruit, with constable, with junior ranks. Very little work is being done. In our days, we had Dr. Janice Jackson. Paul, you can recall Janice Jackson had all of us senior officers in class, and we benefited so much from interaction with her. I remember she made a presentation when they had the Caribbean Police Officers Conference at the Pegasus. And after the presentation, Jamaica, Barbados, and St. Lucia took on offer a contract to do work based on what she was doing in the Ghana Police Force. She's no longer with the force, and they have a greenhorn, a recruit, who they say is a psychologist dealing with them.
Well, yeah, and this thing about the recruitment, when I saw I was a little concerned because all it says that they're going to be in 3 locations during the coming days. Springlands being one of them, Adventure being a second, and New Amsterdam. And all they're inviting people to work with is your birth certificate and I think whatever other certificates you may have. And you are going to be interviewed. But you're going to be interviewed. So at what stage they're going to be? Is there going to be a written examination? And that's the first thing I asked. I thought maybe they're going to be a written examination to see if the people can mambo. Because let me tell you about interviews. You're going to interview people, and some people can express themselves reasonably well when they're there. Some can't. So you're going to find a situation where some people are going to come and they're going to bluff you to sound good. Can't mambo. And conversely, you're going to find a man who might be shy. He comes there and very introverted. He can't express himself adequately, but he can write properly. So I don't know how this assessment is going to be done. And what struck me as strange too, in the release from the PR person, they get this man who was right on the behalf, everything painted rosy. They're saying that this is part of a process where new police stations are being built, and therefore there's a requirement for additional police ranks, and that the establishment of the force is going to be increased on all level. But you can't fill what you have now. I remember I'm not going to give the exact figure, even though I know it. When I was there was a certain number, the establishment. You had difficulty all the years in filling that establishment, despite all they do, conversion course, they do all manner of things to fill, and couldn't do it. I remember not so long ago, under the, I think was Minister of Home Affairs, Clement Roy, the establishment was increased, still can't fill, because you are in competition with a lot of other entities. You all are recruiting from the same pool. You're recruiting from Guyana. Unlike long ago, when they brought in from Barbados and those islands, all the recruitment now from Guyana. You have government telling you about all this infrastructure work, new hotels, the security, mushrooming of security companies. They're all recruiting. And the salary in most cases, or in many cases in those things, are even more competitive than what the police are going to pay. I understand a constable gets perhaps $80-something thousand a month. The security companies are competitive and less strenuous, less problematic. If you go with a man working in construction, mixing cement and pushing wheelbarrow, is competitive with that. So I wish them well. I wish that they're able to recruit, and not numbers that you have emphasized, not numbers, quality persons. And the only way you can get quality persons is by having a proper process to identify them very early. Ab initio, you identify those persons so that you can have quality. It should not be about numbers. You can, and you know, the thing that's one of the things that struck me too, when you look at the comment, is that some people are asking, if you come in, can I go to immigration? Can I go to traffic? Can I go to, can I be a detective? That sends a message to me. To me, that sends a message. When people are asking to go to certain specific location, even before they join, or immediately they join, it tells me, and we know, people believe that traffic and those places are lucrative areas, and therefore people want to go there. So they're coming in with intention to get involved in corrupt practices. Once somebody's going to make that type of comments, that is my view, that they're coming to get involved in corrupt practices. CC, you're the training man. You've been there years, all the years. What are your further views on this?
Paul, with this economic boom that is taking place, or that is projected, there really will be a real shortage of manpower. And if you go back to the police, Paul, for the past 2 years plus, they have not completed a single recruit training program. They're not thinking outside of the box. They blame it on COVID. The GDF at senior officer course, junior officer course, cadet officer course, skill at time course. Right now they have basic return course going on there, but the police throw back and say COVID. But I'm happy that they're at least making an attempt to recruit persons in the force. I hope that they get through in the interest of the force or in the interest of the country, but this is not an easy task. But they need to think outside of the box. They need to be innovative, and they need to change their recruitment strategy.
Yeah, well said, well said. And again, let me emphasize, it should not be about numbers, because they're going to go there and you're going to try to get numbers. And then at the end of the day, you're going to get yourself in a more serious position, because you already have a reputation of being unprofessional and corrupt. And therefore, if you recruit the wrong persons, that reputation is likely to get even worse. It's likely to get even worse. And let me take a pause to again invite all of those latecomers. I see a lot of people come late, I'm going to deal with them. Lenny, you came late this morning. Raul, you came late. So I will ask the people who deal with that to make a note and decide how to deal, and invite you to share the link. I don't want to get like a certain man and get abusive to tell you to share the damn link and all that. But share the link. Let people know what is going on. We're now touched. Bonita, welcome. 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 Bonita is saying that you disagree on what? So, no, the thing is what we're saying is that the fear out there is that if you get into the force, you want to go into some areas because they believe that them areas get run-ins. Let me put it in language. I use the word lucrative, and you might have a a problem with that because, as you rightly pointed out, some areas might be more lucrative legally because they get extra duties and all this type of thing. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about here is that people want to get involved in run-ins. People want to get involved with run-ins. So that is what we're saying. So I think we're not a variance, but only that the language might be different. Yes, there are places in the force where people get a lot of extra duty and so on, and therefore the earnings, the legitimate earnings, might be good. But we are talking about people who come in, want to go to get involved and to take part in run-ins. Now let me say this. The corporate communication unit, they always try to, every week they try to outdo themselves. Now, one of the things I want to tell them, we've been talking about this all the time, and they somehow they're obstinate, and they decide, well, because the message comes from Slow and Conway, they're not gonna look at it. There was a robbery not so long ago of a businesswoman in Linden, and when you look at the release that these people are giving, too much information. Even the ladies, the registration number of the victim is in the release. What benefit is that to the public, the ladies' registration number of the vehicle? So these things are unnecessary. And I would hope, I've been saying all along, that people should vet these things before they go into the public domain. They should vet them. And then again, let me explain to them, because there was a release yesterday about a raid exercise in Sophia, a raid exercise. Now, that is unheard of. You don't know the difference. They don't know the difference between an exercise and an operation. And let me explain to you. When you talk about an exercise is basically training. You train, you have a training exercise, simulations and all of that. So that is referred to exercise, right? Exercise trade wins. Some of the bigger exercise, you get the exercise with the GDF military police joint exercises. You hear about those are exercises, training. Now, when you do a raid, as you call it, it's an operation. There's a big difference between an exercise and an operation. So I hope that you will seek to correct that. You can't have a raid exercise in the manner in which you describe. Really raided several places and seized items and phones and all this everything. And that too, when I look at the release, it raises a lot of questions, but I'm not going to go into this today. That's to the legal people about the legality of some of those things, because some people believe that maybe because you wear the uniform, you can run into a man's home, you can stop it just so and arbitrarily search him. They are case laws, copious, numerous case laws on that, numerous laws. And if you're following politics internationally, you'll have seen only recently, a few days ago, where the FBI carried out a search. They executed a warrant on the former president. Look to see how the process is done. Look to see. You might learn something from that. And then what struck me, the one for this week, you always get these things. The one for this week, I got to read this one. The headline was, bandit shot dead during home invasion, West Demerara. That is about a week ago. And the things, and this is, I'm quoting, because I don't want them to say that I'm misquoting them. The things, according to Singh's wife, Singh is a businessman. The story goes that this businessman, he lives at this property with his wife. They have secured the property and retired to bed. About 1:30 in the morning, they organized, and when the businessman, who's the licensed firearm owner, got up, he saw this intruder. And according to Singh's wife, after he shot the intruder. I think there were two, one escaped, he shot one. And the wife was saying that after Ford was shot, that is the intruder, he then started to beg Singh to take his life. So they say, this is what the release is saying, that the intruder, having been shot in his leg, started to beg the businessman to take his life. Then they say a scuffle ensued between the injured suspect and Singh, which resulted in several more rounds being fired, which caused injuries to the suspect and also to Singh. The police were then summoned to the scene, where they saw the injured suspect with several gunshot wounds to his head and body, lying in a pool of blood. Singh also suffered from gunshot wounds about his body. This thing sounds so confusing. This thing sounds so Marie-ish. I really can't. So they're saying this is the release the police gave. And even if this is the story narrated by the victims or the wife there, they have to make sure that whatever you put to the public make little sense. You have to make sure, but to tell me, John, public, that the businessman shot this man in his leg, and then the man started to beg the businessman to kill him. And then the businessman refused to do so. And somehow a scuffle ensued between the businessman and this intruder, resulting in several shots being fired. At the end of the day, the intruder ended up dead with gunshot wounds, and the businessman had several gunshot wounds as well. And this, according to them, is one gun. Not really taking place. You could decipher this this Marie story.
Cannot, but Paul, there was I remember we had a discussion or a lecture by Justice Crane in terms of dealing with intruder. I think you were there when you were foremost in asking questions. Maybe you could talk a bit about that.
Yes, you jogged my memory there. And there's always this issue about when you can legitimately shoot, when you can fire. Let me understand it. This discussion stemmed from that. Back in the day, when I was a young officer, they used to have what you call dinner nights. And at the dinner night, at the officers' mess, they will invite some prominent person to deliver a lecture on a particular subject. And what you're referring to there is, I think it was Justice Crane delivering a lecture on the same issue as to when you can shoot. And when it got to the point where he spoke about, as you rightly pointed out, because I was a firearm instructor for a number of years, and I was interested in knowing certain things. So I asked a lot of questions. And one of the questions that was asked relates to an intruder. And I remember very correctly and vividly the justice saying that if you secure your premises, you secure your home, you retire to bed, you wake up in the night because there's an intruder, you're a licensed firearm owner, you are within your rights to open fire and shoot that person. You don't have to ask any question. Let me repeat this. You secure your home, your residence, your place of abode, you retire to bed. Some nights, as in this case, wake you up. You see an intruder. Come at what the justice was saying, that you don't have to ask, what are you doing here? Who is you? No. So you are authorized under those circumstances to open fire. And if the person suffer fatal injuries, then you are protected by the law, because as they go on to say, your home is your castle. And let me make this clear. I even thought to point out it's a distinction between your home that is secure and your yard. And for my Jamaican colleagues, Dudley and them who online, when Guyanese talk about yard, they're not talking yard in the terms of Jamaican yard. A Jamaican yard is called your house or your home. Jamaican yard is that. But you're talking about outside the building. You say it's different to outside the building. And it depends on how the outside is secured. Because you went on to explain, if you have a high fence, then a person who is in there can be there by accident. But he said you get to yard and maybe there's a low fence, and you have to cater that maybe somebody wandering to the yard they don't mean to do any harm, and therefore the standard is different. But once you come to inside your house, you wake up and there's an intruder, you don't have to ask no question. I know what you're doing here. And here we understand this clearly. We aren't talking here about no sweet man, We aren't talking here about no sweet man. We're talking here about a legitimate intruder, if there is anything like a legitimate intruder. We're talking about a person who intrudes to do harm, to commit some crime. And therefore, that is what the justice did. So in this case, I read it and I thought it would be good to explain that to people, because people always continue to ask when. There's always a question. You have a lot of people, police, private security, licensed firearm holder, and that is one of the problems in Guyana. They get these guns and they don't know when and how to use them. And the thing about that matter too with this businessman, I was disappointed to see the man's photograph in the newspaper. The man's photograph. This is a businessman. People know the story sound like Nancy's story. Why would you want to put the man's photograph? This is a man who's alleged to be shot and killed an intruder, right? you open up the man for retribution and all the man's family know exactly who the man is, what he looks like. Those things should not be. Those things should not be. You should not expose people like that. You should not. So we want to make that point. Of course, we haven't heard what has happened further about the matter. The man was hospitalized. The one there taken to the one hospitalized, and then there's no further release. And that is a thing that I've been saying all along. They come out with this release initially, and then you don't hear anything more. There's no follow-up. You don't hear anything more. For example, the man we spoke some weeks ago about the man who pelted the police with a piece of brick. Remember the man who pelted the piece of brick with the police? The media subsequently said that the policeman lost his eye. Edmondson, I think it was his name. And you hear nothing, whether the wife and the father who are involved, whether they two were charged, nothing. And that is part of the problem that we have. Now let me move on.
Paul, before you move on, there's another one, that I read a couple days in one of the dailies. Big headline: Hicken revive Hinterland Intelligence Committee. Very good. I was a former member of the Hinterland Intelligence Committee, but they put the names of all 21 persons who were on that committee. All 21. This is an intelligence committee, and all 21 names were listed and the designation where they came from. Perhaps they're not learning when they not learn from the experience where the unholy bishop invaded, unlawfully entered special branch, took photographs, took recordings, and in his Facebook page had the photographs of 21 persons who are in deep cover from special branch on his Facebook page. We talk about it and they put it down, but they're not learning from those experiences, Paul.
Well, you can only learn if you get the capacity to learn. I have come to the conclusion that many of those persons don't have the capacity to learn. Imagine you get an intelligence unit, whatever, the regional intelligence, and you put in a name.
Hinterland Intelligence Committee.
The name and the photograph splash all over the place. So immediately when you know what's going to happen there, when anyone them turn up, people can get quiet there and say nothing because they believe they come to couture, as the Guyanese will say. There is couture. We ain't talking nothing when they're about. Continue to share the link. Continue. The numbers have gone. We have reached what I expected to reach, but continue to share the link. Now, the next thing that I wanted to talk about, I saw too that recently they had another meeting with the private security companies, and the subject there seems to have been the use or the illegal use of sirens and flashing light by vehicles assigned or owned by these security companies. I think that was the focus. And the first thing that sprung to mind is that, well, yes, they should not be using it, but are they the only ones who are unlawfully using sirens and flashing lights? I know that they get businessmen, they get, I was about to say journalists, they get reporters, they get friends of the politicians and senior police officers who ride around. Anytime drive around town, you're going to see, go along the East Coast, eastbound, flashing light, siren, and they're not police vehicles. So while I agree that the law does not allow for these security companies to have flashing lights and siren in the vehicles, you have to target the others as well. This is supposed to be a broad-based arrangement. You can't just single out the security, you should not only single out the security company, because the civilians, the other people, businessmen, the reporters and all of these people, they are breaking the law as well. So you should speak to them as well. And let me say this, because that is what, in reading that release, then I realized it says that the person who spoke to them about the unlawful use of siren and flashing light was Traffic Chief Dennis Stevens. I said, what? Because when last I remember, the Traffic Chief was Ashram. So I was shocked to learn that Ashram is no longer the Traffic Chief, Stevens is. And I remember Stevens was there as the Deputy Chief Immigration Officer. That is the man who's in charge of immigration. Because again, in terms of teaching, this is about teaching, The law says that the commissioner of police is the chief immigration officer. The commissioner of police is the chief immigration officer in Guyana. But then there's appointed a deputy chief immigration officer, is the man who actually heads the immigration department. So Stevens was there heading the immigration department, and making some inquiries, I was told that the new deputy chief immigration officer is a superintendent, Telford. Used to be Agile. They said, what's in the name? He used to be Agile. He is now Telford. He's put there to head the immigration department. And it struck me as strange because the deputy to Stevens, I am sure, is senior to Agile. Telford. He was promoted at the last promotion, this controversial promotion just over a month ago. She was also promoted, then I understand, but she is senior to him. And let me say this. The immigration department is one of the few departments in the Guyana Police Force that has been receiving high praise and commendation from all persons who have had to interact with that department. People sing the praises of the immigration department. They are efficient, they are very courteous, and people are high in praise. I only hope that now that you're going to bring a man, and I should mention, because prior to going to be the deputy chief immigration officer, he was, and he is Telford, was at the Presidential Guard. He was one of the officers at the Presidential Guard, so he's moved from being at the Presidential Guard to be the Deputy Chief Immigration Officer. Mr. Conway, your views?
I observe that also, and I endorse your views that in terms of the efficiency in which the immigration department has been performing under Stevens. I had experience recently from my overseas relatives who went there, and despite there's a shortage of passports, they were high in their praises for the work being done, the courtesy that is being displayed by members of that department. But just getting back to the person who is heading there, I check that illegal promotion list that came out there. And as you rightly said, the deputy is senior to the person in charge. When I look at the list of promotion, she is number 4 on the list and he's number 8. And then he is in charge of her. How could that be? How can a junior be in charge of me? But then back to incompetence, back to corruption in the Guyana Police Force, Paul.
And that is where the breakdown of discipline comes in, because you put a person, you install a person junior. Maybe the person who is installed above, decent, quiet, would not say anything. But it brings a kind of a feeling, especially when you know that the person has absolutely no experience in dealing with it. And then what will happen? You're going to be doing all the work. You are required to do all the work. And the person there, as I said, bigging up the chest and pumping seat. It leads to indiscipline. And again, I say that department is doing so well. That is one of the pearls in the Guyana Police Force, one of the few. I only hope that this new arrangement does not contribute to that, to diminishing the proficiency and the effectiveness of that unit. I only hope that doesn't happen. Now, let me raise
Paul,
this. Yes.
Paul, let's get back to the private security services. According to the Private Security Act 2009, for the agency to become a security service, it has to register as a company. It has to have GRA compliance, NIS compliance, and comply with the labor law. And in the first instance, after police investigation, it's the police who will license them. It's a 1 year. And it's a 1 year from the time that it was registered. Now, we had numerous reports about improper conduct, unprofessional behavior, use of firearm. I understand that on Saturday, during that discussion, the problem came up in terms of the use of firearm and the training for them. And lo and behold, I understand they were told, look, the police going to design a training program. Remember, he had said that he going to do a 3 weeks training program. They said they're going to design a training program, send it to the agency, and they will ensure that the ranks are trained. I can't really understand that because some of the chief security officer needs training themselves. And it's not the only training of persons coming in. There are supervisors who need to be trained. Now you're giving them a program for them to train. Training got technique. Person got to be trained as a trainer. And then maybe they're doing so because when I look at what's going on in the police force, in the training department, the force training officer is an inexperienced deputy superintendent. The commandant for Georgetown College is an inexperienced inspector, and I say inspector. The one in charge of Felix Austin Police College in Borbis is an ASP on probation. And I understand the Richard Feichel Police College, there's a sergeant there in charge. I know it has been upgraded recently. What the police are doing is that they're trying to hello training to other people. They're talking about UG, they're talking about Cyril Potter College, they're talking about Industrial Board of Training and all kind of thing. Nothing wrong, engage those things. But the police has got to build capacity to train. They got to identify people and get them trained. Perhaps talk to the British, get some instructors to go overseas and do training if they can't do it locally. That training is very specific, but they're not doing any training. And you tell me an inexperienced deputy as a force training officer, an inspector as a commandant, a sergeant is in charge of a training institution. Man, where we going? Where we going, Paul?
Down. We're going down. I can answer that question with one word. We're going down. That is where we're going. And then there's no end. There's no end to the incompetence. And we will do what we can do on this program to educate, to point out these things. We will continue to do. I know that they listen, and many things that have been said, perhaps some of the handlers, the political handlers are not aware, and then they get involved and they ask questions, but that is what is going on. Now, in terms of moving on, I really want us to touch again on this Quindon Bacchus case. I can't. Every week, I got to talk about this thing because the more you see and the more you hear, the more worrying it becomes. You know, one man is charged with murder, two are charged with, one is perverting the course of justice, and one some other offense. Now, both of these persons, well, all three have been refused bail and remanded to prison. Last week, I made the point from the recent case from the Privy Council, where even in Trinidad, it's a Trinidad case, where even bail, the appeal, the Privy Council has ruled that even persons who are facing charge of murder can be released on bail. Now, in the Guyana case, we have these persons, I understand, appeared on 2 occasions before the magistrate, and bail was refused. So it caused me to do some research and go back into my training as a police recruit. And you would know that we were taught they think the subject was factors to be considered in granting bail. Yeah. Factors to be considered in granting bail. And one of the things, one of the primary factors was whether the person was a flight risk. Yeah. That's what I say. If the person was a flight risk, then the person should not be granted bail. Then they will tell you that if the person was likely to tamper with the evidence or witnesses, then the person should not be granted bail. And in the research that I did, there are some other factors. They said nature and circumstances of the offense. As I said, nature, long ago we were taught capital offense, murder, treason. Well, the murder thing now. And I remember that even in Guyana, I don't know if you remember that, but I'm sure the lawyers and so on, the people who are research-minded, I think there was a case where Justice Ian Chan granted bail to a murder accused in Guyana. Yeah. I think it was a case where he had been on remand and several trials on jury or whatever, and the man was released on bail. So you have case even in Guyana where murder accused was granted a bail. So they say nature of the charge. Then they talk about the potential penalty of offense. So if the offense perhaps is life in prison or death, then well, maybe you don't want to put the person on bail. Then they're talking about, we said about interfering with witness. We talk about tampering evidence. Family ties to the community, very important. Family ties. This man has family ties to the community, so therefore consideration should be given for him to go and bail. Employment history, length of residence and reputation in the community. So if the person is employed, gainfully employed, so in other words, the person is known. Then they talk about mental illness and substance abuse. Another factor is criminal record. And they talk another factor, previous default, whether the person has failed to attend court on previous occasions. Known aliases. In other words, somebody get false identification, false name, as we said, you know your right name, you might want to consider keeping him in custody because you know what is the real name and what is the name address. Then they go on to say whether he is currently on bail for another charge. One of the factors. Is this person currently on bail for another charge? They go on to say, is there a current restraining order in effect? Is there a current restraining order in effect? Because the restraining order, they might not want to put him on bail because then he might go and violate the restraining order. And whether he's currently on probation or parole or pending appeal of a criminal conviction. My research has shown that those are the factors to be considered in granting bail. And let me tell you this, how this thing is so unjust in our society. Only a few days ago, I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday, I saw a headline. Let me read what the headline says. Kanji youth on manslaughter charge over fatal stabbing of businessman. Granted $750,000 bail. The article goes on to say, a youth was this morning, and that was August the 5th, charged with manslaughter after he allegedly confessed to fatally stabbing an East Barbies businessman last Sunday evening. It goes on. Dave Singh, that's the name of the accused person, 21 years, appeared at the New Amsterdam court before magistrate Renita Singh, who read the charge sheet. Let me read back that paragraph. Dave Singh, 21, appeared at the New Amsterdam court before magistrate Renita Singh, who read the charge to him. It states that between July 31st and August 1st, he unlawfully killed Vikram Subaran, 53, of Lot 125, number 2 village, East Kanji Bobbies. He was represented by attorney Marceline Bacchus, who requested bail. He reminded Magistrate Singh that the offense was a bailable one and claimed that his client was not a flight risk. Let me read further. The police prosecutor did not object to bail, but asked that the man be ordered to report weekly to the police. She also asked that his travel documents be lodged, but his mother, who is the mother of the accused, was indicated that he is only owner of a national identification card. Singh was asked to post $750,000 bail for his release and ordered to report every 2 weeks to the police. So here it is, only this week. Man appeared on a charge of manslaughter. He's released on bail, and you will note the prosecutor asks for him to report every 2 weeks. The magistrate said, go on bail, but report to the police every week. In other words, the magistrate exercised a discretion. In this case where a man lost his life, manslaughter, and you have people who are there charged with perverting the course of justice, nothing close to manslaughter. Nothing close to manslaughter, and they have been refused bail on 2 occasions. How can we say that this system is fair and just? CC, what are your comments on this?
Just to repeat some of the things that you mentioned, in terms of granting bail, I was a prosecutor, subdivision officer, station sergeant, and I'll tell you, in bail, we're looking at the gravity and the nature of the offense, the status of the accused, the weight of evidence, and the person who's going to grant bail, he should be guided by the Constitution and his consciousness of the crime situation. I know of many cases. Even we go back to the Boston case, same day the police granted bail, persons charged with manslaughter, same day they get bail. So I don't know what is the big issue with this current case. Perhaps politics at play, and also the criminal justice have a very rigorous standard, and that is proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And we shouldn't allow politicians to dictate what should happen in the criminal justice system. There must be a separating wall. There must be a water wall, must be sacrosanct, Paul, between the criminal justice system and political decisions. And it appeared to me that a lot of politics is at play in terms of granting of bail in this particular case and many other cases.
And it should not be. You should not be. One, Sean is saying here, one of the main factors for not granting bail in Guyana is because you're being poor. And that is the perception. How can you escape that? How can you escape that perception that one of the factors in not granting bail is because you are poor? Again, we're talking about a charge of perverting the course of justice. Nowhere can you equate the seriousness of that charge with manslaughter. And as you rightly pointed out in the Oren Boston's case, the policeman shot and killed Oren Boston in his bed.
Dead.
He was asleep in his bed when the policeman shot and killed him. And on the first appearance before the magistrate, he is put on bail. First appearance, he's put on bail.
Perhaps the policeman was an intruder.
Well, you're right. You're right. Because he intruded into the man's home. He didn't intrude, but unlawfully so. Now, then you have this case where this businessman in Borbies, a Borbies businessman, is killed. Another death, unfortunate death. Any loss of life diminishes all of us. An unfortunate death. He appeared in court, and on the first appearance, he's granted bail to the tune of $750,000. And don't get me wrong, I am not saying that the man should not get bail. I am not saying that in the circumstances the magistrate might have considered and said, well, look, he's not a flight risk, blah, 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 put him on bail. So I'm saying, therefore, why is it that these persons who are charged, and as the lawyer said, it's a bailable offense. The lawyer pointed out in the case in Borbies that the offense is a bailable offense. The magistrate agreed. I am sure that even if the lawyers in this case did not point out it's a bailable offense, the magistrate would know that it's a bailable offense. And they claim that perhaps the prosecutor objected to bail. So what? Even if the prosecutor objected to bail, it is the magistrate way. Take the circumstances into consideration and make a determination as to whether bail should be granted or not. And that is why things like these cause people to lose faith in the justice system. And you don't want that to happen. But when people believe that the law is not evenly dependent, the law is not colorblind, then you run into issues. You run into issues. It's a bad case. It is a bad case. I'm not going to go into other details because in relation to the old thing we said from the beginning, that it appears as though this matter was not properly investigated. Perhaps I will deal with that some more at a later stage. But I'm not dealing with that part of it now. I am dealing with the part of bail. And here, we're not talking about bail for the man who is charged with murder. Even though, based on the cases that I have read, the one case in particular coming out of Trinidad and the Privy Council recently, and the one that relates that Mr. Ian Chan, they say that even murder is bailable now. Even murder is bailable. So what happened? I'm dealing with the men who are charged for far lesser offense, and I believe they have every right to feel aggrieved and every right to feel that they are being victimized in not being allowed bail. So many conditions can be attached, as in this case with the one in Borbies. Prosecutor said he left his passport, meaning that he can't get away and go anywhere. Let him report to the police station every week. Conditions can be attached to ensure that the person on bail does not escape or the person does not interfere with witnesses and affect the prosecution of of the case. CC, what more you want to see on this?
I agree with you, Paul, and you're very, very clear on it. And maybe we could talk about it for the rest of the morning, but let's move on with something else. I
Now,
think we.
I want to. There's a subject that I want to close on this morning, which and let me you know, when I come to this thing now, I like quote these people, you know, and I'm talking about the fire that destroyed the Office of Professional Responsibility. I saw a headline this morning, and this is news source article that yes this morning, a few days ago. Fire service confirms that the fire at OPR was electrical in origin. 9 months after this fire was November last year. The fire service is now confirming that the fire was electrical in origin. And let me read some more. When the fire force struck the section of the police headquarters last November, Minister of Home Affairs Robeson blamed the blaze on arson, although there was no evidence to support his claim. This is news source. This is not me. I'm quoting what the thing says. He had also claimed that the fire had been triggered by the word of political opponents and political activists abroad. That is the Minister of Affairs in relation to this same fire. Now the fire service, who comes under the same Minister of Affairs, is saying that the fire was electrical in origin. No. Let me go on a little bit more before I call you in. I recall similar statements were made after the breakdown fire in October last year. Now let me quote some of the statements. The president was reported to have said, and I quote him here now, based on statements of threats made in the US, his government will solicit international assistance to investigate the fire. He is further reported to have said, this is coming, and I quote here again, this is coming on the heels of threats made on the capital city from New York. And this is not the first time. And I am not going to take this lightly. I am going to ask for international support to investigate, to follow any lead, and to ensure that our capital remains safe. That is the president of the oil-producing cooperative Republic of Guyana. Then the vice president made a statement on it too. Vice president was reported to have said that, and I quote, breakdown fire must be treated as a potential act of domestic terrorism, one that will necessitate the assistance of overseas investigators to bolster the capacity of local sleuths. What do we have here? We have a situation where senior government functionaries, no less a person than the president, no less a person than the vice president, and in the case of the OPR fire, no less a person than the Minister of Home Affairs, pronounced on this matter. And you'll recall in the case of breakdown, the fire occurred a Saturday around 11:30. I understand the fire was foreseen. And the next morning, within 24 hours, the debris was being removed from the scene of the fire. I wrote in that. It is somewhere there the very next morning. So you have a situation where these statements, at least the minister's statement, can now be classified, I think, as being reckless, because you're saying that this thing was instigated by people abroad, and your own department, perhaps that's why it took all this time for the release to come out, because this fire occurred in November, and this is not coming. Your own department is saying, no, sir, there's not nobody from overseas. This thing is electrical in nature. Unless, of course, if you put a police cap, you want to say that the people from overseas were able to somehow affect the electrical circuit to cause this fire. CC, I see you smiling. Let me hear your views on it, man.
Well, in relation to the breakdown fire, Paul, remember, as you rightly said, all the evidence, if it was any there, they removed them overnight. And then we had the famous three things. We had a piece of sponge, we had a wire, and we had a lighter. I heard the president, I heard the vice president, I heard the minister, and what is written in that newspaper is true. What they said, and they made wild statement, hasty generalization, without allowing the fire service to do their work to pronounce on the issue. They're talking about domestic terrorism and a whole set of people. But that's how we go in, and that's how the politician behaves.
I want to read, coming back to the bail issue, I want to read something that one of the contributors just put up, which is very instructive. Said the chief magistrate conducted McLennan's bail hearing. The submissions of the police prosecutor said the person said they were quite surprised that she denied bail for perverting the course of justice. The accused, that is McLennan, had no previous charge, so it is difficult to see how one could conclude that there was a substantial likelihood that he would interfere with the administration of justice, tamper with witnesses, or pervert the course of justice when there was no established record. That is what a contributor is saying. That is what this contributor is a legal person is saying. So it supports exactly what we are saying here. There's absolutely no reason for this person not to be released on bail. Absolutely no reason. And of course, the magistrate, if she or he so chooses, can attach conditions. If you feel he's likely to be a flight risk, lodge your passport. Bail can be substantial bail, even though there's a principle in law that I learned as a police officer, which says that bail should not be so substantive as to be really amongst the denial. In other words, you can't tell a man, and since you know that, we were trained in this type of thing. You can't tell a man $20,000 bail for a minor thing because it amongst the court says that's amongst the denial.
Yeah.
Amongst the denial. So you put a reasonable amount of bail and then you attach conditions.
Yeah.
That's the report every Monday at a particular police station. You can name the police station where he has to report. And you note in the Bobby's case, the prosecutor asks for the accused person to report every week. The prosecutor asks for him to report every week, and the magistrate says no, report every 2 weeks. The magistrate says he can report every 2 weeks. So there we have it. Now coming back to this this thing. I mean, politicians are politicians. They will make statements, try to influence certain people, but you can't make statements like this one, which turns out to be, in my view, to be reckless, because you're saying, and you know, those things can cause, because when you say about intellectual authors and people, it just can lead to a certain course of action by the security forces. It can lead to a certain course of action. People could have been arrested, detained, and then you hear, well, no, it is electrical in nature. It is electrical in nature. And we had a similar case. Do you recall the fire in the Barnwell behind the Mocha?
When those children perish.
Fortunately lost those children in the fire. Yeah. Very early in the day, they claim that our reputed husband or our partner, police issue a big wanted bulletin for him, because it was said that he was suspected he's the person who would have caused the fire. And a few days after, then they said, well, look, the fire was electrical in nature. So you can't jump to conclusion, and these people in these senior positions ought to know that, because they have a wide audience, they have wide following, and they can influence a certain course of influence a certain course of action. And not only influence, they can direct, because you know what's going on now with this police force. They take a lot of political instructions. They can direct a certain course of action, only to discover later, as we have discovered in both cases we reference, that is a OPR matter and the breakdown fire. Statements are made, reckless statements, and you would note, and the evidence subsequently belie the statements. And you would note, I was amused when I read, doing my little research, when you retire, you get time to do your little research.
True, so true.
I would have found out that it was said both by the president and the vice president that they will seek international assistance to investigate. Let me repeat. They said they're going to seek international assistance to investigate the breakdown fire. and I know people calling for international assistance to investigate other things. I don't think they're that anxious to have that assistance for those other allegations. But that is where we are. I mean, it's a sad state that we have found ourselves in, where these reckless statements are made, and then, well, they don't eat humble pie. You know, people say you eat humble pie, you put your foot in your mouth. They don't do that. So they just go on, carry on smartly. They just carry on smartly. We had some other issues to talk about, but CC is all 14, 50 minutes already.
Yeah.
This time, something happened. You know, I believe you just put a little windmill or something on this time, and this time just moves. Once we start, the time just fly out. So I had some other subjects that we want to deal with, so we're going to leave that. I don't think they are pressing as the ones that we have dealt with. And we're going to leave that for next week. Any closing comments from you?
Just maybe you want to know what happened with the guy with the sponge, the wire, and the lighter 9 months after. Anyway, and in closing, I wish to urge the Guyana Police Force to seriously look at the recruitment process, to seriously look at the training. I used some words before, and I'm going to use them again. That they're treating training like a pregnant, unmarried, unwanted stepdaughter. And I end there.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You're always to the point. I mean, I'm sure the viewers will tell you that they learned so much from your contribution. I want to tell you too that I'm always grateful, and I learned so much from the contribution that you make. I want to close by again. Now, one of the things before you go, CC, I think that I forget one of the things we should really mention this week, CC, before you actually go, is this issue about the dismissal of the 3 ranks who are charged in this matter. And I wrote a letter to the media on it. I think it was published last Saturday. And I think it is important enough for me to talk about it a little now, to have your say. Because the letter, dismissal of those 3 ranks charged in the Quindon Bacchus murder, that dismissal is unlawful, it's unconstitutional. And I pointed out the reason that I come to that conclusion in the letter. You cannot dismiss a person under Section 34(1), as the man who sits in the chair sought to do. The courts have ruled repeatedly on that persons have to have the opportunity to be heard. It is natural justice. It is a case where those persons are presumed innocent until they are proven guilty. And you cannot arbitrarily dismiss those persons. I said in the letter, and I'm saying here, that I hope that the relatives of those persons, the attorneys of those persons, will not wait, will start the process now to have those unlawful and unconstitutional letters of dismissal withdrawn, or move right away to the court. You do not have to wait. The action was already taken. The people are dismissed from the 5th of July, I think it is. That's the date that they appeared in court. No opportunity to be heard, no chance to say their side of the story, just arbitrary. And that is when you get incompetent people, because they would have read the law, Section 34(1) of the Police Act, Chapter 1601, and they do a literal interpretation, and then go further to see what the courts, what the case laws are on the same matter. And there are numerous case laws, as I pointed out last week. There are numerous case laws where similar action was taken, and in all of the cases, when person challenged it in a court of law, in most of them, the Attorney General chambers got a chuck in, because there's no defense. There is no defense, and then you have to pay damages to those persons. And the sad part is, and this is one of the things I wanted to mention this morning, the sad part is that if they decide not to reinstate them, there's no court can compel them to take them back. That's the sad part. So even though they were unlawfully and illegally dismissed, they can hold the ground. Well, we ain't taking you back. So all the court can do is award damages, all your benefits and so on, but the courts cannot force. There's a concept which says that you cannot force an unwilling employer to accept a willing employee. So that concept works, and therefore it's a travesty. It's a real travesty. As I pointed out in the letter again, the person should have been interdicted from the 1st of July, pending the outcome of the charge. Pending the outcome. And again, it's not me. The laws are there. And it goes on to say that if the outcome is favorable, then the person should be reinstated. And if the outcome is unfavorable, in other words, if they are convicted, then is when you apply Section 34(1). So they would have gone through a process. They would have been given a chance to be heard, the criminal matter. And if they are convicted in the court of law, then and only then. And there are cases like that currently pending. You would know when we were the commission, a man who was charged with some sexual offense, he convicted, and they did not advise us that he had appealed, and therefore, based on the fact that he was convicted, a dismissal notice was prepared. And then when we realized that the man had appealed, we had to withdraw the dismissal notice.
That's true.
Because it's appeal, the matter is not complete. So those things are there. So for those who want to hear, let them hear. And I thought it's important for us to mention that. Do you want any comment on that?
It's proof beyond a reasonable doubt, Paul. A man is innocent until proven guilty. And also, I always mention that there is a God-given right. It started in the beginning with Adam and Eve, where the Lord, although he knew what they had done, asked them what took place. So it was is the beginning, so shall it be in the end. And Paul, I'm always happy to have groundings with you, although some guy described us as anarchists and said we have no place in society, but we'll continue to have groundings, Paul.
Thank you. And just so quickly, as we talk about grounding, our matter, that is the matter where Mr. Conway and myself and others are charged. The matter comes up on Friday. You would note too that on Monday last, the matter dealing with the appointment of the police, the chairman of the Police Service Commission came up before the Chief Justice. Arguments were made, oral arguments were made, and the decision in that matter is scheduled to be handed down on the 23rd of this month. And then tomorrow, there is a continuation of this matter. The matter continues. I'm not sure what stage it's at. On the appointment of the acting commissioner of police. The matter is tomorrow in the High Court. I want to close by once again thanking you for being here in your numbers, very large numbers again this morning, and to say I'm encouraged to continue sharing the good word, sharing the message. People have told me how informative they are from this program. And again, lastly, COVID is still with us. Every day you pick up the paper, you have double-figure cases of new infections. You have also deaths being reported. And all I can do is to urge you to continue to be as safe as you can. I have a note here which says that the matter tomorrow, 1:30, in the Ikin case, judgment tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. In other words, the court will decide whether the appointment was constitutional or not. That will be 1:30 tomorrow. So be safe until we meet again next week, God's willing, for another episode of Speaking Out, Exposing Corruption and Incompetence. Until then, see you and bye.